Our theme this month is practical wisdom, and today's topic is cause and effect. And today is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. You may be a mother, but for sure you had a mother, regardless of who you are, male or female. There's a mother in your life somewhere. So you may think that today's topic, cause and effect, is a coincidence for this holiday. But I chose it consciously because a large part of who we start out as in this plane of existence, that is, having a human experience on planet Earth, a large part of who we start out as is the effect that a mother causes. That's not to say that is ongoing throughout our entire lives, or what we call our whole visit here on planet Earth, because the rest of our lives after the beginning, as we come to that age of reason, is up to each one of us. It is to say, however, that our awareness of that as we grow into adulthood and maturity is an important part of becoming who we came here to be. And the definition of motherhood is not just the act of giving birth to a child. It's also about caring for and protecting a child, raising a child. And the tasks of care, protection, and teaching this new life is not limited to its birth mother, but also includes its family, its community, the schools it attends, as well as the availability of examples of spiritual and moral wisdom. Did you know that in our modern day society, there is a motherhood manifesto? Have any of you connected with that at all? This is the title of a book. This is the title of a movie, a study guide. And there is also a documentary about this. So as I look around the room, I realize that we are not a group of families who presently have small children at home, and both parents working to support them. But I venture to say some of you, like me, did have that situation in your family when your children were preschool, elementary, middle school age students. And so you can remember, as I can remember, the juggling act that it was to keep everything in some semblance of balance. The word manifesto is defined as a public declaration of policy, aims, program, proclamation, or notification. In the world we currently live in, it's increasingly important that we address the cause and effect principle to the raising of our children, and that our society be in sync with that. I haven't read this book yet, the Motherhood Manifesto, yet it's my intention to do so, because the cause and effect law is so important in the raising of future generations of humanity. The acronym for mother, M-O-T-H-E-R, the acronym is a compelling way that they have encapsulated the issues that concern all mothers in today's world. And some of that is addressed in the Mother's Manifesto that continues, which is rather lengthy. The M stands for maternity and paternity leave, being able to be with the newly born child. The O stands for open, flexible work. The T, this one I found really interesting. The T stands for television and the media's stranglehold on our children. The H stands for healthcare. The E stands for excellent child care. And the R stands for realistic and fair wages. So what you hear here is people who are raising children, both of whose parents are working, or if it's a single parent household, that parent is working. And these are the things that are important to be dealt with, to be certain that children don't have lack in those areas. And here's something else we know in today's world. Cause and effect are not just something that we talk about esoterically in our classes, in our workshops, in our conferences, or even in standing in the light. We each are cause to our own effect. And we are universally cause to universal effect. And by that I mean what each of us says and does goes into the collective consciousness. Now, for those of you who have been studying the science of mind, you know that the collective consciousness is the overall consciousness of the world, and that all of us are contributing to that in some way, positive or negative. So when someone puts into that collective consciousness negativity, then it's very much available for the rest of us to experience. The more positive thinking goes into that collective consciousness, the higher that becomes, and the effect on the population as a whole is raised in consciousness. That's a very brief description of the collective consciousness. But know that it is out there, and you are impacted by it, perhaps in a negative way, until you know that it's there and you know that you stand in your own power to do those positive things that serve you and those around you. So that's one of the reasons why motherhood, whether it's the birth mother or any other member of the family, and I'll expand on that in a minute, that's why their participation in the raising of that child is so important. A form of it is an action practiced by everybody, which makes it so important that our awareness causes us to consciously choose our thoughts, choose our words, choose our actions that provide ways for humanity, generally, to become better in each succeeding generation. From ancient times to the present, those who have taken on the role of mother or motherhood have been celebrated for their presence as givers, for their conscious participation in our joys and our sadness, for their actions as our defenders and supporters. Even in a mother's heart, her child is always her pride and joy. Even when that child becomes an adult, raises children of his or her own, even when he or she begins to show streaks of gray or white in their hair, they are always a child to the parent who raised them. So this job of mothering is a treasure trove of love, caring, opinions, guidance, and humanness. Those who mother understand what a child doesn't say just as well, or sometimes better, than what a child does say. They know that a child's growth is not just measured by height or years or the grade in school. It's marked by the progression from mama to mommy to mom, or in the case of my adult children, mother. Mothers learn to accept the unique and individual being that their child is, just as that child learns to accept the rare, wonderful, and mysterious person a parent is. And mothers understand, somehow, that on the days they are so tense from their kids' behavior and constant energy that they get a headache, they just need to do what it says to do on the aspirin bottle. It says, take 2 and keep away from children. Double meaning there. So in 364 days of the year that are not the holiday called Mother's Day, what each Mother's Day looks like depends on the mother involved and how that person has learned to be a child's guide. There are limitless possibilities for practicing the art and science of motherhood. One of them includes birthing a child, but that is a part of motherhood and not the whole enchilada. For to mother is to nurture, and that's a concept which begins after a new life shows up. Contained within each one of us, female and male, is the ability to nurture, to care for, to comfort, to love. So though we celebrate today in honor of Mother, perhaps we can also take time to honor the attributes of mothering that exist within all of us. Every moment that you spend developing your own spiritual maturity and growth is also a moment wherein you are developing your ability to mother and to be an example to others. Each time you acknowledge your own abilities, your own self-worth, your own divinity, enables you to see it in others, children included, and to honor that, to respect that, to encourage that in them. Each time you choose kindness and understanding over judgment or criticism, you send a message of love, of compassion, and acceptance of those around you. I believe it's our job to keep looking for and at the myriad of ways each of us can and does practice mothering children. Those practices don't have to be heroic or dramatic or even noteworthy, because this is a role that we play every hour of every day. What a Mother's Day typically looks like is seldom heroic or dramatic or even noteworthy. It's just that when you add all those days up, that you recognize the value, the importance, the specialness of each day's contribution. Indeed, within each one of us who provide such examples to children and young people, we are utilizing the value of practical wisdom. Before I close this morning, though, I thought about turning the recording off while I talked about this. I decided I'm going to leave it on, and we'll listen to it this next week and see if we really want this to go out to the whole world or whether we want to keep it for ourselves. But for right now, I'm continuing to record this. I want to share with you some thoughts on our role as followers of the science of mind in practicing and living love with children. In the vast majority of reference material we use in our classes and discussion of these incredible principles, there's not much information about modeling that for babies, for toddlers, for children, for tweeners, and right before you get to teenagers. Some of our large science of mind centers on the mainland have youth programs because they have members whose family include young people in those categories. And there are publications available for them to use, teachers who have had training in teaching that material, and facilities in which those classes can be taught. Our situation here in Hawaii is significantly different. in that our congregations are made up of members who may not have children or whose children are adults. And though we occasionally have guests here on vacation and who do bring children with them, it happens infrequently, and those who come are here for a week or two and then return home. The value of sharing these principles that we have learned and practiced, which most of us have learned in adulthood, has such an incredible positive effect on young, inquisitive, quick minds that finding a way to share on a broader scale has great potential for enlightening our local population. Ken Kai's, in his book, Handbook to Higher Consciousness, devotes a whole chapter to living love with children. In that chapter, he says, children are very sensitive mirrors of our consciousness level. When they are surrounded by peaceful, loving people, they reflect a warm, flowing state. Just as your level of consciousness determines your world. He goes on to say, usually a child is very perceptive in picking up the true feelings and vibrations of those around him or her. As fellow travelers on the road to higher consciousness, we should see our adult roles as loving and serving every child, not just the ones we bore. Now, obviously, there is work associated with this, and the first question is this something that some of us here in this group would like to pursue for the greater good on the island? And if so, would participate in learning how to present it? Another question to be addressed is, are there opportunities or existing programs you already know about that we could become a part of once we have the tools to present this kind of material? And should we decide to move forward with this program, another important question to be answered is, how can we best let people know that it is available to them and their children to participate in? One of the things that we are always very much upfront about is that any time we teach classes to children or teens, even into the early 20s sometimes, we make it very clear that the parent is welcome to participate. We encourage it so that they know exactly what is being presented and in some instances learn from it as well. So if this is something that you as a member of our congregation would consider participating in, please let me know in the next week or so. There are resources available for both materials and training once we know we have volunteers to utilize them. And though you may not have children, or your children are grown, as mine are, this can be an opportunity for you to take Ken Kai's words to heart. As fellow travelers on the road to higher consciousness, we see our adult roles as loving and serving every child. And an opportunity to demonstrate practical wisdom by being cause to bring about positive effect, not just our own, but also by impacting the universal effect, which is that collective consciousness. And so it is.
So it is.